It is Friday, August 22nd, and Fed Chair Jerome Powell bending the knee yesterday morning at Jackson Hole. The market erupting higher, the president elated. Also, John Bolton raided by the FBI yesterday morning, and major news coming out of Canada, folks, dropping their retaliatory tariffs on the United States, which is a big deal. We'll explain, and more stories as well from around the country.
A very happy Wall Street. The Dow is soaring into record territory after Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell forecast changes could be on the way. Listen.
Risks to inflation are tilted to the upside and risks to employment to the downside. The baseline outlook and the shifting balance of risks may warrant adjusting our policy stance. Monetary policy is not on a preset course. FOMC members will make these decisions based solely on their assessment of the data and its implications for the economic outlook and the balance of risks. We will never deviate from that approach.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell bending the knee yesterday at Jackson Hole, hinting rate cuts are coming, and a big cut. We reported last week that the White House was apparently no longer concerned with Jerome Powell, that their focus was shifting to Lisa Cook, who is this hyper-partisan board member appointed by Joe Biden, and it appears the pressure from the FHFA on her potential mortgage fraud tilted the balance of power at the Fed. Markets erupting higher yesterday, the Dow breaking through to new record territory, just shy of 46,000 on the Dow. Anyone who was worried about Trump's tariffs hurting your 401k or your investment strategy, all of the panicans in the press corps who've been screaming for months about tariffs ruining the U.S. economy, just completely and utterly wrong. President Trump elated after Jackson Hole. His two major campaign promises, inflation and immigration. Inflation, all but solved now. The last piece was interest rates. The only lever that Trump couldn't pull himself is now about to be pulled. It's about to be thrusted down. In fact, Democrats not happy at all, which you got to wonder, how could you not be happy with rates coming down, easing pressure on American families, on their constituents? They've been holding out hope that the Fed would resist lowering rates, at least until after the midterm elections, knowing full well, mind you, that Americans are struggling out there. Millions of Americans, working class Americans, unable to buy a house, unable to pay off their credit card debt because of interest rates, all thanks to the Fed not lowering the rate. It's just funny, right? The opposing party would rather you suffer just to win back more political power.
And maybe because he doesn't like him, but it's really because he understands
all about the
interest rates need to go down for the
and
economy to get better.
He's been clearly trying to strong-arm him into lowering the interest rates. Powell has held his ground, saying, again, we are the ones who make this decision. But we've seen a maximum pressure campaign on not just Powell, but also on his board of governors at the Federal Reserve. I mean, they are trying everything in their power to try and manipulate the system to get more Trump loyalists in, to have Powell feel pressure and resign, anything they can. Of course, as we've reported, he has been warned not to fire or attempt to fire Powell. So this is now their pressure campaign around that.
So you've been doing some excellent reporting on that last part, specifically Lisa Cook, who is a member of the Federal Reserve Board. Quickly, let's just listen to what the president said this morning about her.
Are you going to fire Lisa Cook, the Fed governor, over her mortgage fraud?
I'll fire her if she doesn't resign. Yeah, what she did was bad, so I'll fire her if she doesn't resign.
Explain.
This would be a really big deal. And I think to Kristen's point, the president has backed off kind of his calls or the potential for firing Jerome Powell. His advisors have made very clear this is a bad idea. We don't think you necessarily have the legal authority, especially because you don't have cause to do so, which would be the only way the president would have that authority. And it would be catastrophic for a market that he really relies upon for the broader macroeconomy. Lisa Cook is a different story in the sense that one of his kind of top allies, attack dogs, Bill Pulte, the director of the FHFA, sent a referral to the Justice Department related to what he says are the improper documentation of primary mortgages, which he says or alleges would constitute mortgage fraud. The Justice Department, this section run by another very close Trump ally, sent a letter to Jay Powell alluding to the fact that they are starting an investigation here. Pulte says this is cause, and if there is cause, then the president would have authority. There's two parts of this that I think are really important. I'll try and get through them quickly. One, the idea of what constitutes cause is very ambiguous. And going down this path of firing a Fed governor is also going to have an effect on the market, which I think the president and his team will be cognizant of. The reason why they are willing to pursue this, whether just purely for pressure or because they actually want termination, is there is an open seat right now from a governor that left early that will soon be filled when the Senate votes to confirm Stephen Meyer, the president's top economist. If Lisa Cook were to leave, that would open up another seat. The president would get to appoint another official. If that happens, the president would have a 4-3 majority on the Fed board, the Fed governors. That's operational control of the Fed. Mm-hmm. That's budgets, that's process, that's how they do research. That also gives them control over the Federal Reserve Bank presidents, 5 of which, of the 12 on a rotating basis, vote with the Federal Open Market Committee on interest rates. Mm-hmm. This would be a major, major deal, and I think that's why you see the president so keen on pursuing it right now.
At this point, the real question is, will the Fed even be around in a few more years? That's the long-term question to think about, because there is a lot of chatter in the West Wing of the White House about ending the Fed after the midterms, especially if Republicans can maintain control of the House. They would need the House and the Senate to pass something to do this, and it's in the cards, folks. It is most definitely being thought about over there. Let me know what you think about that. Should the Fed even exist? Because realize the Federal Reserve's job is yield curve control, rate control. That is like a 180-degree shift or opposite of a free market. Think of the Fed as a speed governor on your car, not letting you exceed 35 miles per hour. That's what the Fed is. That's what they do. Shouldn't the market determine where rates should be? Isn't that the point of a free market capitalism? Let me know what you think. The CBO, meanwhile, releasing a new bombshell report yesterday on Friday, predicting that President Trump's tariffs will reduce the federal deficit by around $4 trillion, $4 trillion over the next decade, citing how the federal government's new source of revenue, tariff revenue, could shrink the primary deficit by $3.3 trillion and cut federal interest payments, that's a big one, by $700 billion over the next decade. And that's got nothing to do with the Fed cutting rates. This is just Trump's tariffs alone. The CBO report also projecting further increases in tariff revenues in the coming months. Yesterday's CBO report coming as Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announces that Canada will be dropping its retaliatory tariffs against the United States. Carney realizing finally that he's in a lose-lose situation, and falling in line is really the only option he actually had. Watch.
So let's be absolutely clear. Canada currently has the best trade deal with the United States. And while it's different from what we had before, it is still better than that of any other country. So as we work to address outstanding trade issues with the United States, it's important, it's vital. We do everything we can to preserve this unique advantage for Canadian workers, Canadian businesses. And doing so will require both building on a soon-to-be revised CUSMA, our free trade agreement with the U.S. and Mexico, as well as developing a new form of trade and security partnership with the United States. In this context, and consistent with Canada's commitment to CUSMA, I'm announcing today that the Canadian government will now match the United States by removing all of Canada's tariffs on U.S. goods specifically covered under CUSMA.
Canada's economy is subsidized by the U.S. It's been like that for a long, long time. We have these long-standing deals set up where we purchase Canadian instead of American, such as lumber, energy, dairy, and many other sectors we purchase from Canada, but the Canadian government doesn't allow Canadians to buy American, tariffing Americans for dairy and cheese 300%, effectively giving Canada this free ride for so many sectors of their economy. What they've done, Canada, since Mark Carney, was try to ice America out of their markets. Carney's plan originally was to replace American trade with European trade, but he's realized that's not so easy. It's, in fact, much cheaper just to eat the new Trump tariff. This U.S. relationship that they have, he must have not realized just how good of a deal it is for Canada. And this is good news all around. Canada was one of the last holdouts for a trade deal. That is now over. In another story, President Trump's former NSC, National Security Advisor, John Bolton, raided by the feds yesterday morning, the FBI, searching for classified documents. Remember, Trump stripped Bolton's security clearance and his security details, so he can't have any classified information, anything in his house that's classified, or in his car, or in his office. He was supposed to return everything classified back to the government. So what exactly are the feds looking for? I don't know. Whatever happened to all those yellow notepads, for instance, that Bolton used to carry around the White House during the first Trump administration? Reporters asking the president what he knew about this yesterday. Watch.
No, I don't know about it. I saw it on television this morning. I'm not a fan of John Bolton. He's a real sort of a lowlife. When I hired him, he served a good purpose because, as you know, he was one of the people that forced Bush to do the ridiculous bombings in the Middle East. Bolton, he wants to always kill people, and he's very bad at what he does. But he worked out great for me because every time he doesn't talk, he's like a very quiet person, except on television. If he could say something bad about Trump, he'll always do that. But he really doesn't talk. He's quiet. And I'd walk into a room with him with a foreign country, and the foreign country would give me everything because they said, "Oh no, they're going to get blown up because John Bolton's there." He's not a smart guy, but he could be a very unpatriotic guy. I mean, we're going to find out. I know nothing about it. I just saw it this morning. They did a raid.
Do you expect the DOJ to brief you on this?
Yeah, they'll brief me probably today sometime.
And the foreign minister.
I tell Pam and I tell the group, I don't want to know, but just you have to do what you have to do. I don't want to know about it. It's not necessary. I could know about it. I could be the one starting it. I'm actually the chief law enforcement officer. But I feel that it's better this way.
John Bolton, one of Trump's most vocal critics, a real swamp creature. He was also very enthusiastic during the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago, using the famous "no one is above the law" line. How many times have we heard that when it came to Donald Trump? Now all the people who've been screaming about nobody above the law are singing a very different tune. Watch MSNBC yesterday, this little snippet. The network, again, who said no one's above the law 5,000 times in May 2024 alone, saying something very different suddenly. Watch.
This is a president who has promised retribution.
Yeah, this is chilling. It really is. Listen, John Bolton and I disagreed on many things back in the days when I was serving in public office, but I don't think very many people that know John Bolton would argue that his beliefs were intellectually sound. You could disagree with him, and that he gave a lot to this country in terms of time and his intellect and his work ethic. And clearly this is retribution. Clearly this is using the FBI in a way that not only tarnishes the FBI, but it tarnishes our country. I mean, this is what they do in countries where they don't have rule of law. This is what happens when despots take over, like Putin.
John Bolton has a reported net worth of around $90 million. Where does a career bureaucrat get a $90 million net worth from? 90 million bucks. I don't know. Peddling intelligence could earn you that kind of scratch, I guess. I don't know. Could that be what they're looking for? What we do know is this is most definitely not the last of these raids coming down the pike. I wouldn't be surprised if we see James Comey and John Brennan next, cleaning out the swamp of D.C. Meanwhile, President Trump reinstating the FBI whistleblowers who were punished by Biden, granting 10 of them their long overdue back pay. FBI Director Kash Patel saying on Thursday that nearly a dozen whistleblowers who were punished by the Biden administration have all been reinstated to the Bureau with back pay, adding that the FBI agents also had their security clearances restored. Now, you may remember one of these whistleblowers, former Marine, Marcus Allen, who came forward to the Republican Judiciary Committee whistleblowing how the Biden FBI was unlawfully investigating Americans who were critical of their policies. We saw that during COVID. We saw it during those school board meetings. This is what these whistleblowers were punished for. Trump is cleaning up shop, and good riddance. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.